She had been living in the same house as her killer, and she didn't even know it. Favor was 26 years old, slim, with tired eyes, and hands that had none work since she was 8. She was the kind of girl who woke up before the sun, who swept the compound before anyone stirred, who cooked, cleaned, fetched water, and still found time to say good morning with a smile. People in the neighborhood called her humble. Her stepmother, Regina, called her useful. There is a difference, a very painful difference. Favor's father, Clement, was a quiet man, a good man, people said. He worked as a school teacher in the local government and came home every evening smelling of chalk and tired love. He married Regina when Favor was only 9 years old, 1 year after Favor's mother, Clara, died in a road accident on her way back from the market. Clement thought he was giving his daughter a mother. He did not know he was handing her a sentence. From the outside, the home looked complete. Regina kept the house clean, she dressed well for church, she smiled at the neighbors and called Favor my daughter in public. But behind that door, behind that painted smile, there was a different woman entirely. Regina had 2 children of her own from her first marriage, twins, a boy and a girl, Jaden and Tracy. They ate first, they had shoes, they went to the best school in town, while Favor attended the government school 3 streets away where the roof had been leaking since 2014 and nobody cared enough to fix it. Favor never complained, not once. She had learned early that complaining in that house came with a price, a slap, extra chores, or worse, cold silence from the woman who held all the power in that home while Clement was away. Regina had a way of punishing Favor without leaving marks, the kind of punishment that goes straight to the soul. There was one rule in that house that nobody said out loud, but everybody understood. Favor came last, always last. But here is the thing about people who are pushed to the back for too long. One day, they stop moving backwards. And that day was coming. Favor just didn't know it yet. It started with an envelope. A brown, old, crumpled envelope that fell from between the pages of Regina's Bible one Sunday morning while Favor was cleaning the bedroom. Favor almost swept it away with the dust. Almost. But something made her stop. She picked it up. It was sealed, old. The edges were yellow, the way paper gets when it has been hiding for years. And written on the front, in handwriting Favor did not recognize, were 3 words that changed everything. For Favor only. Her heart stopped. She stood there in the middle of that bedroom, holding that envelope, and something moved inside her chest, like a stone rolling in a river. She didn't open it, not yet. She heard Regina's footsteps coming down the corridor, and she quickly slipped the envelope into the waist of her wrapper and stood still, broom in hand, as if nothing had happened. Regina walked in, looked around the room, looked at Favor the way she always did, like she was looking at furniture, and walked back out. Favor exhaled. And that night, when the whole house was asleep, she sat under the thin light of her phone torch, unfolded that envelope with shaking fingers, and began to read. The letter was written by a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a lawyer named Wilson Bassey from Lagos Island, dated 11 years ago. Favor's eyes moved fast at first, confused, trying to understand the formal language, but then she slowed down, because what she was reading, what those typed official words were saying, was too big to rush through. Her mother, Clara, had not died poor. Favor had always believed her mother left nothing. That was what Regina had told Clement, that was what Clement believed and repeated. Your mother was a good woman, but she had nothing. We are managing. Those were his words. Favor had swallowed those words for years and used them as fuel for her hustle, telling herself she had to work hard because there was no cushion, no safety net, no inheritance waiting anywhere. It was a lie, a carefully planted lie. Clara owned a shop in Onitsha Market, not a small store, a real shop registered with goods and a lease. She also saved money in a cooperative, a women's savings group she had been part of for 7 years before she died. And because Clara had a feeling, the kind of feeling mothers get when they sense the world is fragile, she had written a will, a simple handwritten will that a lawyer had helped her formalize. Everything went to Favor. The shop, the cooperative savings, a small plot of land in their village that Clara's father had given her. All of it for Favor. Not for Clement to manage, not for anyone else. Directly to Favor when she turned 18. Favor was now 26. For 8 years, that inheritance had been waiting, and for 8 years, Regina had been sitting on it, hiding it, using it. Because the letter also revealed that a woman had come forward, claiming to be Clara's sister, to manage the estate until the child was ready. That woman had provided documents. That woman had a name. Regina. Regina read that name and her hands went cold. Not cold like air conditioning cold. Cold like the kind of cold that starts in your stomach and moves up to your throat and makes you feel like the ground under your feet is no longer solid. Favor sat on the floor. She didn't cry, not yet. She was past the place where crying comes easy. She just sat there on the cold cement floor of her tiny room, the room with the leaking ceiling and the mattress that had a dent from too many years of use, and she breathed. She thought about the school fees she had struggled to pay, the time she hawked on the street during holidays to buy her own textbooks, the school uniform she had to wash and rewash because she only had one set, the dreams she had quietly buried because she believed she had nothing. She had something. She had always had something. It had just been stolen from her. Now, if you have been following this story and it is hitting somewhere deep, this is the moment to subscribe. Because stories like this, real stories, painful stories, stories that remind us that justice must come, we tell them every week. Subscribe now and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment. Back to Favor. She made a decision that night. Not an angry, rushed decision. A quiet, deliberate one. She would not confront Regina with noise. She would not scream or throw things or go to Clement in the middle of the night. She had watched enough of life to know that poor people who shout are called mad. She would be smart. She would be patient for just a little longer. She folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. But this time, she hid it somewhere Regina would never think to look. Inside her church Bible. The one Regina had given her years ago as a gift. The one Favor had held every Sunday, every night of prayer, every moment she needed strength. Sometimes, the thing that was meant to bury you becomes the thing that carries you. 3 weeks. Favor spent 3 weeks gathering herself like a woman preparing for war, except her weapons were not loud or violent. They were quiet and precise. She found a way to contact Wilson Bassey, the lawyer who had written the letter. It took her 4 phone calls, 2 bus rides, and 1 borrowed airtime from a neighbor, but she found him. He was old now, semi-retired, but the moment Favor mentioned Clara's name, he went very still on the phone. "Are you her daughter?" he asked. "Yes," Favor said. There was a long silence. Then he said, "My daughter, I have been waiting for this call for a long time." He told her everything. He had tried to reach the family years ago, but the woman, Regina, had told him Favor was a minor being cared for and that all correspondence should go through her. He had trusted the process. He had been deceived too. But records do not lie. He still had everything. The will, the documents, the proof of Clara's property. He had copies because good lawyers keep copies of everything. He told Favor to come to his office and to bring someone she trusted as a witness. Favor brought her aunt, her mother's real sister, a woman named Ruth, who lived 2 hours away and who always believed that something was not right but could never prove it. When Ruth heard everything, she wept. Then she straightened her back and said, "We go finish this." They went back home together. It was a Saturday. Clement was home. Jaden and Tracy were watching television in the sitting room. Regina was in the kitchen cooking, humming one of her church songs like a woman with a clean conscience. Favor walked in and stood in the center of the sitting room. "Daddy," she said, "I need everyone to sit down." Something in her voice made Clement put down his newspaper immediately. Jaden muted the television, Tracy looked up, and Regina walked out of the kitchen holding a cooking spoon, wearing that familiar look of irritation she always had when Favor spoke above her acceptable volume. "What is this one again?" Regina said, already defensive. Favor placed the envelope on the center table. "Open it, Daddy," she said, quietly, "please." Clement picked it up, looked at it, turned it over. He saw the lawyer's stamp, his brow furrowed. He opened it slowly, the way a man opens something he is afraid might change his life. It did. As Clement read, the room got quieter and quieter until the only sound was the ceiling fan turning and Regina's breathing getting heavier and heavier. By the time Clement reached the part with Regina's name, the forged documents, the claims, the estate, his hand was shaking. He looked up at Regina. He did not shout. He did not stand up. He just looked at her with eyes that had suddenly aged 10 more years and said one sentence. "Regina, what did you do?" And that was when everything broke open. Regina did what cornered people do. She denied. She raised her voice. She cried. She said the letter was fake, that Favor had fabricated it, that this was what she had always feared, that Favor was trying to destroy her home. She turned to Clement with tears streaming down her face and said, "Are you going to believe this child over your wife?" But Ruth was there. And Ruth pulled out her phone and played a voice recording, a recording from the lawyer himself, confirming every single detail. The room went absolutely silent. Jaden stood up quietly and walked to his room. Tracy was crying. Clement had his head in his hands. And Regina, the woman who sang in church every Sunday, who had called Favor my daughter in front of neighbors, who had smiled and managed and controlled that household for 10 years, Regina slowly sat down on the floor. Not on a chair, the floor. Because there are moments when the weight of what you have done finally becomes too heavy to stand under.
Clement did not sleep that night. Favor knew because she could hear him in the sitting room. The creak of the chair, the occasional cough, the silence that was louder than any argument. She lay on her mattress staring at the ceiling, not triumphant, not even fully relieved, just still. The way a storm goes still after it has said everything it came to say. The next morning, Regina was gone. No dramatic goodbye, no apology note. Her bags were packed and she had left before 5 in the morning. Jaden and Tracy went with her because they were her children, and that was right. Clement did not stop her. He could not. The ground between them had been replaced with a valley too wide to walk across. He knocked on Favor's door at 7. She opened it and found her father standing there, looking smaller than she had ever seen him, like someone had taken the air out of him. His eyes were red. His shirt was untucked. He opened his mouth twice before anything came out. "I am sorry," he finally said. "Favor, I am sorry. I did not know. God knows I did not know." Favor looked at this man, this quiet, chalk-smelling, good-intentioned man who had failed her, not with cruelty, but with blindness. And she felt something complicated move through her. She did not hug him immediately. She let the words sit between them for a moment, because some apologies need a second to land properly before you respond to them. Then she stepped forward and held her father, and he held her back. And they stood in that doorway for a long time without saying anything else. Some things are beyond words. Some healings start in silence. 2 months later, with the help of lawyer Wilson Bassey, Favor recovered her mother's property. The cooperative savings had grown over the years. Regina had been spending from it, but had not emptied it entirely. The shop in Onitsha was leased to someone else, but the lease was ending. The land in the village was intact. Favor did not become rich overnight. That is not how real life works. But she became something more powerful than rich. She became free. She used part of the money to rent a small place of her own, a 1-room apartment with a window that faced east, so she woke up every morning to sunlight. She kept the mattress simple, but the sheets were new. On the wall, she hung a small photograph of Clara, her mother, the only one she had. A woman in a market wrapper laughing at something outside the frame. Favor spoke to that photograph every morning. She would say, "I found what you left me, Mama. I found it." She enrolled in a skills training program. She started small, a small business supplying market women with goods using the knowledge she had from years of watching and surviving. Clement visited on weekends. They were rebuilding slowly, imperfectly, the way broken things are rebuilt when the people doing the rebuilding are honest about the damage. As for Regina, the community heard. Communities always hear. The women in the church heard. The neighbors heard. Regina left that town and went somewhere new, looking for another life to walk into with her polished shoes and her borrowed smile. But Favor stayed. She planted herself in that soil and decided to grow. There is something the elders say, that a child who survives a hard home grows roots so deep that no storm can pull them out. Favor had survived. Not just survived, she had stood up at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right evidence, and she let the truth do what the truth always does when you finally set it free. It destroyed the lie. And in destroying the lie, it rebuilt her life. The secret Regina had hidden for 10 years did not just come out. It came out like thunder. And when the dust settled, only Favor was still standing, steady, quiet, and finally home. If this story moved you, share it. And if you are new here, subscribe and turn on the bell. Every week we bring you stories like this. You do not want to miss what is coming next.